Jai. Let me start by reading my wish.
Yes.
My wish. The lover has to keep the wish of the beloved. My wish for my lovers is as follows. 1. Do not shirk your responsibilities. Number 2. Attend faithfully to your worldly duties, but keep always at the back of your mind that all this is Baba's. Number 3. When you feel happy, think, Baba wants me to be happy. When you suffer, think, Baba wants me to suffer. Number 4. Be resigned to every situation and think honestly and sincerely, Baba has placed me in this situation. Number 5. With the understanding that Baba is in everyone, try to help and serve others. And number 6. I say with my divine authority to each and all that whosoever, takes my name at the time of breathing his last comes to me. So do not forget to remember me in your last moments. Unless you start remembering me from now on, it will be difficult to remember me when your end approaches. You should start practicing from now on. Even if you take my name only once every day, you will not forget to remember me in your dying moments. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Meher Baba ki jai.
Okay, so we are on the physical page number 99. And just as context, we are in chapter 3. We finished the favorites and we are understanding about the mad ashram. That's where we are. So let me read for a bit. I'm still not out of the woods from my health situation, but I'm much better than yesterday. So let me read for a bit and then we can rotate. Is that fine?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. One of Baba's disciples who lives in Rahuri and who during the flood spent 3 days marooned on the roof of his house with his entire family told this tale of Punja's end. He also described how a few days before the flood, Punja had a headache, for the relief of which he gave some medicines and a cup of tea. He asked Punja if he wanted to go to Baba, and he replied, Yes, I am going to Baba soon. Besides Punja, there were many others. Ghulam Hussain frightened the life out of a young night watchman by coming up to him in the dark, pointing out Satan to him and exclaiming how big he had grown. Fakir Bua, who had an old depressed fracture of the skull the size of a saucer, used to hit the other inmates from time to time. Once, having come up with a grin on his face to Baidul, he punched him in the nose. He then asked him why his nose was bleeding and advised him to pour earth on his head to stop the bleeding. There were a mort of others. Their eccentricities were not sufficiently interesting to need repeating here, and those who wish to get an idea of their odd ways should refer to Rahuri in the supplement, where a brief description is given of most of the inmates. At the end of April 1937, Baba decided for various reasons to move the ashram to Mehrabad. And as soon as everything was in working order in the new quarters there, Baba set himself to his usual daily labors with the inmates. Muhammad was the pride of the ashram, and most of Baba's activities were focused on him. This concentrated work in the ashram, with a marked emphasis on Muhammad, continued until Baba left for France in August, and a simple and consecutive account of the mad ashram from this time forth is almost impossible to achieve because one's interest in it waxes and wanes depending on whether Baba was there or not. In August 1937, when Baba left India for France, and Muhammad, the Kohinoor in the crown of the Rahuri ashram, followed him there in September. From this time until the performance of the drama Raja Gopi Chand in the autumn of 1938, Baba gave only intermittent attention to the mad ashram. I think we may best summarize the next 14 months of the ashram's life in a few lines, showing whether Baba was there at that time or not. August to November 1937, Baba is in France, Muhammad taken to France. The ashram carries on under pleader's direction at Mehrabad. November end 1937, Baba returns to Mehrabad, a few brief weeks of concentrated work by Baba in the Mad Ashram. December 1937, Baba goes on a 9-day tour in Gujarat. The Mad Ashram carries on as usual. January to mid-March 1938, Baba at Mehrabad again. He concentrates his energy on the Mad Ashram and, of course, on Muhammad. Mid-March to mid-June 1938, Baba at Panchgani, Muhammad with him there. The ashram carries on at Mehrabad. Mid-June 1938 to 25th September 1938, Baba in Ahmednagar and at Mehrabad again. The graph of his intimate attention rises steeply to its peak. The drama Raja Gopi Chand performed on the 25th September. One should not assume that during these phases of Baba's absence, the Mad Ashram was in any way neglected, for the daily routine was carried out with scrupulous with attention to all Baba's detailed instructions. There were, it is true, no new developments during these long months, but there was a full measure of honest and selfless service on the part of those working in the ashram. So I think the very nice way of understanding this period is the graph that he said of waxing and waning of the interest uh, of of the Bad Ashram, depending on whether Baba was in or not. I mean, Baba was in India and Baba was in the ashram or not. Okay, so let me continue. The name, the change came about when Baba planned the performance of the drama. Yeah, the change came about when Baba planned the performance of the drama Raja Gopi Chand after his return from Panchgani in June. And during these few months, there was a crescendo of activity and a vivid renewal of Baba's intimate and loving contact until the crucial day of the one performance on 25th September 1938. The drama was the classical tale of Raja Gopichand, and the principal roles were played by the mad. The chief credit for instilling into these men's disorganized minds their parts, their cues, their gestures, their positions on the stage, and so on, must be laid at the feet of Pleader, who coaxed and cudgeled each actor into shape with an exquisite patience. Costumes and scenery were hired from a theatrical company, and the final performance was witnessed by a considerable audience, for Baba invited many disciples from Ahmednagar, Nasik, Pune, and even Bombay to come to Mehrabad for the occasion. Though not comparable with professional standards, the performance was an unqualified success. There is a photograph. So there it is. There are theatrical props at the back. There are multiple people on stage, and there is a reasonable size audience. I mean, you don't get a sense of perspective from the photograph, but yeah, there's a little bit of coverage for all of the things mentioned by Donkins. This performance apparently marked the crossing of the watershed in Baba's work with these madmen. For from that time forth, he began slowly to withdraw his intimate interest from them and to descend the gentle slopes whence could be seen the peaks of new tasks that lay ahead. We are, however, not concerned in this chapter with the distant prospects, but will content ourselves to follow the gradient of the ashram's descent to its final oblivion in the autumn of 1940. So this happens in 1939, I think, right? 38. So the Raja Gopichand happens in 1938 and the ashram goes into oblivion by 1940. To begin with, a few days after the performance of Raja Gopichand, about half the inmates were sent back to their homes, so that about 20 remained. In December 1938, Baba left Mehrabad on an extensive tour, and on this tour, he began to contact genuine Masts in different parts of India. Of the ashram inmates, Muhammad alone went with him. During this interregnum, the ashram itself remained at Mehrabad, and in Baba's absence was looked after principally by Baidul. Baba did not return to Mehrabad until the following May, when for a brief spell of about a month, he gave intermittent attention to the Mad ashram, and his visits were like bursts of spring sunshine after the winter of his long absence. During these weeks, there was a manifest profusion of telegrams, and the members of Mandali moved daily in and out of Baba's hut with mask-like countenances portending the incubation of new activities. In short, Baba moved to Bangalore at the end of July, and the Mad Ashram, which then had about 20 inmates, was brought there in September. This is 1939. The men were installed in some stables at the back of the Mandali's house. Though allowed the freedom of the garden, they seemed content to sit most of the day in their crepuscular dimness of the stables or on the scraggy grass immediately outside their quarters. At first, Baba would come once every day, bathe one or two inmates, and imbrue the men with the wine of his enthusiasm by a loving embrace or an affectionate tweak on the lobe of the ear. Let's look up crepuscular. Let us do that.
Crepuscular. Specular. Crepuscular.
Resembling or relating to twilight. So that's a crepuscular photograph that you see on the right.
Oh, oh.
So twilight or relating or resembling twilight. Okay. So let's go back and see if that makes sense there. Yeah, in the
Yes, yes.
crepuscular dimness of the stables or on the scraggy grass immediately outside their quarters. So that's what he's visually describing the the scene in Bangalore with the new location. A few days after the ashram arrived, an elderly widow in the house next door, having been misinformed by the distorted and amplified voice of gossip that the ashram harbored maniacs of the most dangerous sort, sent round a note that she viewed with consternation the proximity of such dangerous people and expressed alarm for her own safety and that of her servants. Norina, in reply, made a personal call on her, found her charming and sympathetic, and succeeded apparently in allaying her worst fears. Nevertheless, within a few days, a man was seen sticking pieces of broken glass on the wall that separated her garden from the ashram compound. Not very long after Baba arrived in Bangalore, he opened a special mast ashram in a corner of the garden at the main house. This ashram is described in chapter 4, but it bears a relationship to the Mad ashram because inevitably Baba's interest was more and more concentrated on the few great musts in the smaller ashram, while the Mad ashram, though it was not neglected, came to be a work of secondary importance. In the later months at Bangalore, when Baba's work with the musts reached its highest pitch, he would often not visit the Mad ashram at all for many days. But Baidul would take Muhammad and five other mad across to the Mast ashram every morning, where they would be bathed personally by Baba. At Bangalore, Muhammad was an inmate of neither ashram but lived with the Mandali in their bungalow and spent most of the day hovering around the main hall. He was persona grata there, for by the end of 1939, he had already become moderately cooperative, and no one felt his presence in the house an imposition. At the beginning of April 1940, Baba left Bangalore and returned to Mehrabad by car. He followed a circuitous and fascinating route, threading an uneven path in and out of the warp and woof of the complex fabric of hill and dale that lies between the crests of the Western Ghats and the Konkan coastline. The Mast ashram, the Mad ashram, and the majority of the Mandali came direct to Mehrabad by train. In those days, the Indian Railways had a system by which large parties might hire a third class bogie completely to themselves. Some of these bogies had a kitchen at one end so that the party could cook its own food and be quite self contained. Chanji, who was most astute in the handling of travel affairs, secured one of those large bogies for the party's return to Ahmednagar. Journey was, by all accounts, an episode in itself, for so weird an assortment of oddities can seldom have graced the hard, slatted seats of such a bogie, or indeed any bogie, on this or any railway, either before or since. The Mandali, 20 odd madmen, 5 or 6 musts, a gazelle, a peacock, a sheep, a white rabbit, some geese, 5 dogs, 3 monkeys, and 2 pet birds were all crammed into this one compartment and sat cheek by jowl with tin trunks, packing cases, tables, chairs, and the inevitable medley of domestic and culinary equipment. The only absent friends were Nutty and Gutty, 2 pet pigs who had been brought to Bangalore originally from Mehrabad. Before leaving Bangalore, they had been given to a farmer on the express condition that he would neither slaughter them nor dispose of them to anyone who might end their lives. As soon as the train started, Shariat Khan, one of the musts, tied bells around his ankles and danced to a rhythm beaten out by Punjia on his kerosene tin. Punjia danced as he drummed and made Eruch and Baidul join in. Once or twice, stray strangers tried to get in, but changed their minds after one glance through the window. In Mehrabad, once again, the Mad ashram carried on much as it always had done, but was now almost utterly deprived of the refreshing leaven of Baba's personal contact. As soon as Baba reached Mehrabad in May 1940, he went into seclusion on the hill, and although he gave daily personal contact to the musts who were close to him, he left the Mad ashram to carry on without his external help. During these months, the Mad ashram was installed in what are now known as the family quarters, a few huts and sheds on the outskirts of Arangaon village, about 5 minutes' walk from the Mandali's quarters at Mehrabad. Towards the end of August, after Karim Baba, the great sixth plane Jalali Mast, had been sent back to Calcutta, the remaining inmates of the Mad ashram were again called closely into Baba's contact and were installed in the Mast ashram on the hill. For a few brief weeks, these last lucky inmates enjoyed the daily and hourly stimulus of Baba's presence, but in September, the Mad Ashram was finally closed forever. Without previous warning, several of Baba's men were sent for and were ordered to escort the inmates to their respective towns and villages. The final dissolution of the Mad Ashram did not, in fact, cut deeply into the hearts of the Mandli, and in the process of delving into the memories of those who took the most active parts in the running of the Mad Ashram, I found out that there was considerable hesitation before the approximate date of its final closing was brought to mind. There is no doubt that the brilliance of Baba's collateral and subsequent work with Masts has dimmed the relatively humble glow of his contact with these mad people. But every great work starts from small beginnings, and I believe that the Mad Ashram at Rahuri and Mehrabad bears just this relationship to Baba's later work. In this description of the Mad Ashram, I have deliberately dodged answering an unspoken query that will, I feel sure, arise in the minds of most readers. The question is, of course, did these mad folk improve at all and become more normal as a result of their contact with Baba? And if they did not, what then was the use of the ashram? I think this question is a fair one, and the answer is perhaps not entirely satisfactory. In the first place, I do not believe that the primary reason for Baba's work with these men was to improve or heal their mental infirmities. And I'm inclined to think that the few cases that did improve were merely in the natural course of things. Their improvement might, of course, be put down to the strongly integrating force of Baba's individual love for them. Love does work miracles, and Baba did give them more selfless love than any ordinary mortal could have given. My personal conception tallies more or less with the speculations of the majority of Baba's disciples, and I get the impression, which at its best is but an intuition, that Baba used these madmen as unconscious participants in the genesis of a spiritual reality whose ultimate value will far outweigh the transient external benefits of their sojourn with them. This assessment rests ultimately on intuition and on faith because, as I have already made clear so many times, Baba will not explain the real purposes of his activities, and one's speculations do not therefore have the asset of resting upon the authority of his statements. For that reason, since the matter must remain sub judice until Baba gives us an explanation of his own, it is undoubtedly better to forego further speculation. And that ends the Mad Ashram. We'll quickly see, at least browse the Rahuri section of the supplement.
Karthik,
Yeah.
Ashok is not able to join. He wants the link once again sent.
Oh, okay. He wants the link. I
Ah,
saw a message, and as I was reading, I responded saying, try again. Let me. I'm working on that. Sorry. Okay. So, Rahuri. Also, it's supplement. Maybe in this one. Yeah. Yeah. So here we are. This is in page 331 on the physical book. So there's quite a few people who were in Rahuri. It starts from this page, 330. So the Abdul Hussain Mullaji joined in Rahuri. Then you have Abdul Hussain Mullaji continued, Ahmad, Arjun. We saw Arjun's name come up in the first four. Bachu Raiji, Badshah. So each of them have their own funny things. So he was feeling like a king. So that's why he was called Badshah. Bhaiya, then Bhiku. Dagdu Bua was also covered in the first four. Data Swami, quite old man who used to mumble to himself. He was mad. Dondia, Eknath Swami, Fakir Bua. I think Fakir Bua again we heard of, apart from Punjya. Francis, Ganesh, Ganpat Ramji, Ghulam Hussain, Gopal, Govind, Gulab Shah, Hanuman, Hassan Ali, Isa, Ismail, Ismail Kalidas Swami, Kallu, and there are two Kallus, Lallu and Lal Sahib, Mahagani, Mahbub, Manik Chand, Mangal Das, Muhammad, Fasad. Oh, Muhammad has quite a bit. This, of course, we have read the first chapter, and
Yes,
here
yes.
there are more dates. Yeah. Fassar Bua, Patel, Pira, and of course the drummer Punjia. Ramzan, Rahman, Samlu, Shah Behram, Shah Sahib Arab, then Shankar, Shariar, Sheikh Mannan, maybe South Indian, Syed bin Muhammad, Waman, Vasant, and there's even name not known. Yeah, and that's the last, right? So this is pretty detailed stuff. There's a lot of information that's available about those bad participants. Okay, now let's get back to reading the next chapter. Who wants to start? Anybody? Any
I'll
volunteer?
read.
Please.
I will read. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe next Ashish. 20 minutes Mamaji, then 20 minutes Ashish. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Jai Baba. Chapter
Jai
4.
Baba.
Anything to
Chapter
discuss
4.
on the Mad Ashram before we start? So I think, like he summarizes in the last paragraph, we will never understand what Baba was doing with that effort,
Yes.
and it was not clinical or medical for sure, but obviously he had waxing and waning interest in what was going on there, and I think from there he moved to the Masts, which obviously were a deeper and continued focus of his universal work. But we will never comprehend what he exactly wanted to do or what or was doing there, right? So yeah, I think that's the Mad Ashram. Any other thoughts?
No, only trying to analyze that with our minds is very fruitless. We'll have to accept what Baba did and say he had his own purpose in doing that.
Absolutely. Well said. Jai Baba. Let's continue.
Yes.
I saw Ashok came
Chapter
in and oh yeah, there he is.
Yeah,
Yeah. All
is
right.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Mamaji absolutely rightly said. Karthik, for some strange reason, I can't see the screen, but I'm listening to your golden words.
Okay. Chapter 4, the 7 must ashrams, an explanation. In the course of gathering the details of Baba's must work in general and of his must ashrams in particular, an early discovery was that a hard and fast line could not be drawn between what constituted a must ashram and what did not. Baba has visited so many cities, great and small, all over India, where one or more must have been brought to him, and have lived closely in his contact for a day or week or a year, as it is perhaps not just and proper to make any make an arbitrary distinction and say that in this place or in that place he had an ashram. In this chapter, an arbitrary line has nevertheless been drawn, and 7 different centers have been classified as ashrams. It seems that the amount of must work and the number of musts who stayed closely in contact with Baba in these 7 centers warranted their being placed above the salt and named ashrams, whereas the other possible candidates such as Bhopal, Jaipur, Lonavala, and many others did not quite qualify. But the line is an artificial one, and Baba has never himself drawn any such clear distinction, though he has, of course, checked the typescript of this chapter. The following pages also give emphasis to some ashrams and describe others with a disappointing brevity, and it is chiefly the very early ashrams that suffer in this way, since much of the intimate details of their daily routine has now been forgotten. Unfortunately, also, those things that matter most, such as the spiritual reality behind these centers for God intoxicated souls, the ultimate reasons why Baba has done all this work, the invisible interplay between the utterly perfect being of the Master and the subordinate spiritual capacities of the Must, all these things, although they can be felt intuitively, escape the power of words, and their explanation cannot therefore be found between the covers of this book. But such secrets are surely Baba's affair and the Must's affair, and I suspect that if Baba were to give an intellectual explanation of them, we we should be intrinsically none of the wiser, for these arcana must be experienced in a way that transcends the intellect before we can even begin to understand them. It is better, therefore, that we take a leap from the book of a God intoxicated soul and seek to be overpowered by divine love, or like a God absorbed soul, fly past and straight across the measureless skies to the great homeland of infinite, rather than fritter away our intellectual and spiritual substance in profitless conceits. Flowing language. Okay. Ajmer, number 1, Ajmer, February 1939. The following account of the Mast ashram at Ajmer suffers from a double handicap. The first, that I was not in India at the time of the ashram there, and the second, that those from whom the details of the ashram have been gleaned have now forgotten all but the most conspicuous events. It was, of course, a transient and simple institution, but in spite of that, it has a singular importance in the history of Baba's work with Mas. With the establishment of this ashram at Ajmer, Baba changed from the low gear of working with mad to the higher ratio of working with God intoxicated souls. And this and in this center, albeit temporary, he gathered a few such souls under his roof for the first time. There were, of course, a few musts in the Rahori ashram, but Rahori was basically a center for mad people, and Ajmer was the first ashram confined to work with musts as a distinct class. In December 1938, Baba set out with a mixed group of disciples on a motor tour. They were they went first to Hyderabad and then northeast to Jabalpur. After a few weeks in Jabalpur, they went to Banaras and from there sped up the flat, straight roads of the Gangetic Plain to Mathura, Agra, and Delhi. And from Delhi, they turned westwards across the sandy wastes of Rajputana, and in the beginning of February 1939 reached Ajmer. Ajmer lies on the Aravali Hills and is a dusty, sun-steeped town, although it has no particular commercial importance. It is renowned in India for the shrine of Khwaja Mainuddin Chishti, the Sahib-e-Bakht of this age. The spiritual influence of this man is said to have made more converts to Islam in India than any forcible conversion at the point of sword. And for this reason, Ajmer is a spiritual center and a place of pilgrimage. A compact little house with snowy white walls and a flat roof, a house belonging to a local banker, was hired for Baba's stay. The Western reader should understand that there are countless small private banking concerns in India, and that a banker is not necessarily anything more than a moderately prosperous businessman. This banker's house in Ajmer was not, in fact, an elaborate mansion, but was simple, clean, and cool, and perhaps rather small for the group staying with Baba. As soon as everyone was settled in this house, various disciples were dispatched in the alleys and lanes of the city to find Masts and bring them to Baba. The greatest treasure was the incomparable Chacha, the God-merged Masood of the seventh plane. But since the account of this first contact in Ajmer has already been described in another chapter, there is no need to repeat it here. Of the many other Masts brought to Baba in Ajmer, there were two unusual excellence, Lakan Shah and Qabristan Bala. Qabristan Bala. Lakan Shah was a Mazoob-like Mast of the sixth plane, and his characteristics were principally those of a Jamali Mast with a few traits of a Jalali. Baba describes him in brief as 75% Jamali and 25% Jalali. As far back as 1922, Baba visited Ajmer, and at that time he pointed out a tall mast in the bazaar, and Adi believes that this mast was probably Lakan Shah. In 1939, Baba first pointed out to his group of lady disciples outside the shrine of Khwaja Sahib. He was very shabbily dressed, but those who saw him then for the first time were struck by the radiance of his face as he gazed unblinkingly at Baba. Shortly after this encounter in the street, Kaka brought Lakan Shah to Baba's house. He was a tall, slender man with an old face and dazed but striking eyes, was found singing and sang with so melodious a voice and with such a depth of feeling that all who heard him felt strangely uplifted. Baba shaved, bathed, and fed him as soon as he arrived, and on the first night he lay down to sleep in the same room as Baba. Kaka was also in the room, and Baba ordered him to keep his weather eye open lest Lakan Shah or Qabristan Wala, who was also there, should slip off under cover of darkness. Kaka, who sleeps like Ibn Saudi of Arabia, Ibn Saud of Arabia, and can wake to action at the slightest sound, was whipped out of his slumber by the noise of someone steadily drawing back the bolts of the door. He seized his torch and focusing it on the door was started to see Lakan Shah in granite delicato, making his way out of the room. Kaka followed him out into the cool and brilliant night. Okay, just see the meaning. Definition.
In
Karthik,
the
can you
very act of committing a misdeed was caught. So caught red-handed. That's what it means.
Yes.
So caught red-handed. So he got caught as he was stepping out. So
Yes.
that's what it means. Okay. Please go ahead. Sorry.
Can someone please tell me the page number of the soft copy, please?
Page number of the soft copy, 108, last paragraph.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Jai Baba.
Maybe flagrante means it smells or give a clue. Delicato, so delicately done. Okay.
It
Kaka followed
could be
him
flagrant as well. Flagrantly means openly or whatever. I don't know.
openly.
Yeah.
Kaka followed him out into the cool and brilliant night, and night asked him where he was going and was nicely flummoxed when Lakhan Shah replied that he wished to respond to a call of nature. When he had done all that he needed in this respect, he came reluctantly back to the house and told Kaka, Kaka, you are very thorough. It seemed, therefore, that Lakhan Shah had quite possibly planned to slip away. This attitude, in which half of a must being draws him to Baba, and the half prompts him to show a clean pair of heels and be off down the road, has been experienced so often that it is obviously a common reaction in the relationship between master and God-intoxicated soul. During the days that followed, yes, so photograph, Lakhan Shah in Ajmer, February 1939. So one hand is extended, the other one is closed. Unique way of whether he is saying namaste or some other meaning for that, we don't know.
Mamaji, we don't know because his other hand is not full namaste.
Yes, yes. During the days that followed, Lakhan Shah enjoyed Baba's constant attention. And once when Baba pressed his feet, he told Baba, Master, don't do that. Someone once asked him whom he had been brought to, and he said quite simply, I have come to the Master. He remained with Baba for about a week and was then sent away after being given a blanket and a fine peacock blue woolen shawl. On Baba's instructions, arrangements were also made with a local man to feed Lakhan Shah every day. In June the same year, after Baba had returned to Mehrabad at the close of the motor tour, Lakhan Shah was brought there and stayed for about 15 days. The full face portrait of him and the photo of Baba bathing him were taken at that time. After this contact, Lakhan Shah was sent back to Ajmer, and since then he seemed to have vanished and has either died or has left Ajmer for a place unknown. Kabristan Wala was a short little fellow, apparently in his early 50s, who lived in a tiny mausoleum. Kabar. Okay. This mausoleum was a small shrine, perhaps 3 feet high, built over a grave with a low doorway at one side. Kabristan Wala was naked to the waist, and below the equator was clad only in a tattered and filthy lungi. He drank water from gutters and uh, mirabile dictu, seemed to thrive on this rich but noxious beverage. Mirabile dictu. Wonderful to relate.
Wow. I don't know what that means in our context. Wonderful to relate. Yeah.
And his explanation there below the equator.
Yeah.
Nice.
Basically, it is simple word would have been surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think we have seen C.D. Deshmukh, we have seen Don Stevens, we have seen flowery language by other writers. But I think Donkins takes it to a different level. It's amazing use of words and complicated. I mean, these are all from other languages, right? Latin, French. So
Yes,
anyway,
yes.
please continue. He drank water.
He drank water from gutters, and mirabile dictu seemed to thrive on this rich but noxious beverage. He carried on old tin, carried an old tin, and would ask passers-by for a coin or two. But if you gave money without his asking, he would refuse to accept it. He would solicit sweets and tidbits of food from shopkeepers and householders, and because of the respect in which he was held, would almost always be given whatever he demanded. He was a cheerful little fellow and had that most blessed of gifts, that he seemed always happy and possessed the knack of making others happy too. Because of his rather comic face and short stature, Baba nicknamed him Socrates and explained that he was a very good must of the fifth plane. Kaka was the first to contact him, and he crawled through the dwarf doorway into the dark mausoleum, and squatting there within, he talked gently with Socrates and tried to persuade him to come to Baba's house. In this way, Kaka is most adroit in the art of wheedling his way through the gaps in the stockade of Must's defense. But he found Socrates a trifle evasive to start with. He gave Kaka 1p, the smallest Indian coin, and equal to the 12th part of a penny or the sixth part of a cent, and then clambered out of the tomb and set off down the dusty city street. Eventually, he was decoyed into a tanga and brought along with Lakan Shah to Baba's house. This sojourn at Ajmer was memorable in the first place for the must work that Baba did there. But this work was greatly helped and made infinitely amusing by a certain Tanga driver known as Fateh Khan. Fateh Khan was born a Hindu, but his parents died when he was a boy, and a Muslim adopted him and converted him to Islam and brought him up in his own house. When he grew to manhood, he was given a tanga and earned a living playing his vehicle in Ajmer. As the years passed, flouting the laws of faith, he developed a prodigious thirst for spirits and became notorious as a great drunkard. Despite this, he was a great respecter of saints and seems to have had three loves: his spirits, his tanga and pony, and the musts and saints of his dusty, well beloved city of Ajmer. Fateh Khan was invaluable as a guide for finding musts, and when Baba went night after night to contact Chacha in his hovel near Khwaja Sahib's shrine, Fateh Khan would bring his tanga at 2 or 3 in the morning to carry Baba back and forth. She developed a deep reverence for Baba, and Baidul was told a touching story of his recent death in Ajmer. It appears that Fateh Khan fell desperately ill about 2 years ago in 1945, and when about to die, he called for Baba's photo, which he always kept near at hand. He told his brother and he should always pay his respects to Baba whenever he came to Ajmer, and then, gazing lovingly at the portrait of Baba, he passed away. It was
We
in
can,
this Tanga of, yes,
we can rotate if you want.
yes, yes, yes,
Yeah. So
okay.
Ashish, you want to continue from
Yeah,
here? Jai Baba.
yeah, sure.
It was
Jai
in
Baba.
this Tonga.
Yeah, it was in this Tanga of Fateh Khan that Lakhan Shah and Obristanwala were first brought together to Baba's house, and one visualized with some relish the sight of a drunkard, a disciple, a fifth plain must, and a sixth plain must, all bundled into Tonga, trundling down a dusty lane on their way to Baba's house. Kabristanwala stayed with Baba for about a week, and during these days, Baba concentrated most of his energies on him, on Lakhan Shah, who was there at the same time, on Muhammad, and on Chacha, whom he visited every night for about 10 days. Wow. Lakhan Shah at Mehrabad, June 1939. Lakhan Shah being bathed by Baba at Mehrabad. Note that his head and chin have been shaved by Baba before the bath, June 1939. Wow. Kabristanwala, a photo taken in the October 1947. He is now wearing only an old shirt. In this photo, Kabristanwala is sitting on the floor of a small mosque near his mausoleum. He now apparently sleeps on the bare floor. Two men brought to the Ajmer ashram on Baba's birthday, 15th February 1939. Caught in dramatic gesture, one of those brought to the Ajmer ashram on Baba's birthday, 15th February 1939. Who is caught in dramatic? Uh, this is the same person.
No,
Who
no, we
is it?
don't know. We don't know.
Yeah,
One of
yeah.
those, he says, caught in a dramatic gesture, one of
Dramatic
those.
gesture. One
So
of
we
those,
don't know who
yes.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
When the time came for the Lakhan Shah and Socrates to be sent away, arrangements were made for them to be fed regularly every day. But poor Socrates had by then become so devoted to Baba that he was most reluctant to go. He begged Baba to keep him with him, and it was evident that he deeply feared the impending separation. He was eventually persuaded to go back to his little town, and he also was given a blanket as a parting gift from Baba. Kaka made thorough arrangement for him to be fed twice a day, and the necessary money for this was given to the man who agreed to look after him. On the Baba's birthday, which was celebrated on the 15th February, about 20 men were gathered together at the house. A few were moderate must, the majority mad, and a handful were destitute beggars who barely earned their daily pittance. Each one was bathed and fed by Baba. And Baba himself and all those with him fasted until the work was completed at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Our Muhammad, our Muhammad was also brought to Ajmer, and throughout Baba's stay there, he enjoyed the daily contact of Baba, who would bath and feed him with consummate patience and regularity. Other mutts were brought from time to time to the ashram, but though bathed and fed by Baba, they were not of the same caliber as Chacha, Lakhan Shah, and Kabristanwala. In fact, so little is recalled about them that the supplement at the back of this volume does little more than mention the numbers who came and went. It was evident that when Baba had concluded his contact with the three great musts, his work at Ajmer for the time being at least was complete. Reconnaissance parties were sent ahead and plans finally crystallized into decision to move south to Bhopal. At the end of February, the white walls of the banker's house echoed with the clanking sounds of sacks being filled with the pots and pans and the uneven bang bang hick of boxes being nailed down by those unskilled in the use of hammer. One knows only too well the kind of desolate disorder that reigns in the ashram on the 2 or 3 days before a move to a new home. Floors littered with the scraps of string and the shreds of old newspaper, and the daily routine of working, eating, and sleeping disrupted beyond recognition by the urgency of packing. One longs for the morning when the roof of the slick blue bus will be filled with the stratum upon stratum of impedimenta, the lower layers compressed almost beyond recognition by those that lie above them. When the first suffusion of the dawn pushes the lingering night back over the western hills, the house the house ejects its occupants for the last time, and everyone clambers thankfully into their accustomed place in the bus. And so it was when the party left Ajmer, wiser for the work they had done there and for the lessons they had learned, but with the faces eager for the new phase that lay before them in a new environment, a few hundred miles along a dusty road of the timeless continent of India. Second, Jabalpur, March and April 1939. After Baba left Ajmer in February 1939, he went with his large group by road to Bhopal. And after a few days, they are contacting Mast, none of whom were particularly striking or important. He sped on to the Jabalpur. On this tour, they began in December 1938. Baba visited Jabalpur in January 1939 on the way up, and again in the March on the way down. And it was during the second visit that the Mast Ashram was established. It began about halfway through March and continued until the early part of May, though its most active period seems to have been in the March and April. Like the ashram at Ajmer, the attempt to describe the center suffers from the defect that I did not witness it with my physical eyes and have had to picture it in my mind's eye from the accounts of others. Memory plays absurd tricks, for sometimes a man will forget what were possibly consequential events, while an odd trivial incident will stick in his mind perhaps for a lifetime. This interactability of the memory seems to have come into play in a recollection of the physical appearance of the Jabalpur Mast Ashram. For the only thing that everyone agrees to who saw it was that it was situated in a quite a good bungalow that stood in a pleasant garden. So we will leave it at that, because the material framework within which Baba does his work is, after all, of secondary importance. The chief characteristic of the Jabalpur ashram, as a distinct from the most of the others, was that, except for Muhammad, who stayed for the entire period of Baba's sojourn in the Jabalpur, all the other must, save two or three, were kept for a day or two only, and it is possibly this factor, more than any other, that was made the recollection of the chief events of the ashram difficult to recall. The daily routine was like that of Baba's special centers of must. Newcomers would have tousled heads and beard faces, cropped close with the clippers, and after a bath, a new kafni would be slipped over their heads. They would then be fed by Baba's own hands, and finally he would sit with them in a silent conference. Besides the treatment of new arrivals, those few those few months who were resident in the ashram were bathed almost every day by Baba, and Muhammad, the old favorite, took up the great deal of his time every day. Gulab Baba of Elichpur was perhaps the most interesting of all the musts brought to this ashram. Interesting not only because he was the important must of the sixth plane, but also because he was the another example of the way in which a great soul struggles like a wild steed against bit and bridle when pressed into the king's service. Gulab Baba lived in a Karasgaon, about 8 miles from Elichpur, and when the Kaka and the Jalbhai, one of the Baba's brothers, went to see him, he looked perhaps 35 to 40 years old. When Jal and Kaka entered Gulab Baba's house, there were 25 or 30 people sitting about him. Or he was greatly revered, and many people flocked to have the privilege of his darshan. Gulab Baba at once said, "Did I not tell you yesterday that two men would come to me tomorrow? And see, they are here now." And he pointed to Baba's two men, thus making it is clear to whom he meant. Kaka and Jal then edged their way through the group of village people and sat close to Gulab Baba, who then remarked, "He wants to paint me with the colors of divinity, but I don't want that." Kaka interpreted these remarks as a reference to Baba, by whose contact Gulab Baba would be given the final spiritual push. Kaka then pressed Gulab Baba's feet, which is gesture of the great reverence, and uttered the word Meher Baba as he did so. Gulab Baba then exclaimed, he has caught me, but I don't want to go. He wants to send me to the great homeland God, but I don't want to go there." Okay, he don't want to go there. Perhaps a few words about his apparent reluctance to be united with the God are not out of the place there. And Baba has used the following simile to describe the progress of an aspirant on the path. He likens the path to a house with 3 steps up to the front door, and these 3 steps are the first 3 planes. Thereafter, there's a fourth step up to the threshold at the front door. This threshold is the fourth plane, an awkward and dangerous place where the pilgrims may lose his balance and fall back down the first 3 steps. And if he is not careful, if, however, he crosses the threshold successfully, he enters the safe and level floor inside the house, which is the fifth plane. He walks along this until he reaches the other end of the house, where there is a closed door. When he reaches this door at the back of the house, a center of vision opens in his forehead, which is represented by the opening of the door, and he now sees God. And in the sixth plane, but But as well as seeing God, he sees also an impossible deep valley that separates him in his present position from the splendor of the God beyond, and he does not know how to cross this great rift. It is here that he needs the help of spiritually perfect soul to take him across this last colossal obstacle, which is greater than the sum of all his previous obstacle on the path. I do not know that one is justified in drawing a parallel between his description of the path and the remarks of Gulab Baba, but the has explained that one of the 6 planes shrinks from crossing this great rift that separates him from the God. It is not that he does not desire to be united with God, but he simply cannot take the final plunge. When he sees the great valley, it is as if he said to himself, impossible. So maybe the confidence issue, we can say. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
confidence or maybe knowledge or you don't know.
Yeah.
eh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Jay Baba, I think it signifies the importance of the grace of the perfect master, and a beautiful analogy actually of the planes and moving into the home, and the 3 planes and the fourth plane, the threshold, and the fifth and sixth plane. Beautiful analogy.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So
How
we
good
the
are you as an
traditional.
artist, Ashok? I also like the analogy. So if you can convert it to a good diagram, it'll be nice.
I am
So
not so
our
good. I'll try, but I'm not good.
so
So
our
maybe we can.
traditional houses, there is always a sort of a elevated border at the door.
Threshold, yeah.
threshold. So you may slip on that. If you cross, you are inside. If you do not cross, you are always outside. So this analogy is very, very nice.
Very nice. Yeah.
So usually it is always told, don't step on that, jump
Yeah.
over or cross over. So if you step on the fourth plane and then get stuck there, you are stuck there forever.
Yes, you can get enchanted by the fourth plane. And also, this reminds me of the threshold and on at Mehrabad. When we are entering Baba's tomb, we have to be very careful that we do not touch that.
So when this must suppose die on the fourth plane, right? Suppose fourth or fifth plane. So he takes the birth of again the must as a in the next birth as a it's like he didn't complete his suppose fifth plane, right? He's still in the fifth plane and he suppose dies, right? Then in the next birth might be in the same plane, or that soul goes to directly God. That part.
So the logical explanation that we have understood till now is he comes back onto the same plane, but not necessarily as a must, but as another soul, another human.
Other soul. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, only in the case of misuse of power, then he goes back to Stone Age.
Stone, yeah.
Yeah. So as a normal dropping of body, what Karthik said is that.
Yes, I also remember at this stage our story of Hiranyakashipu and Narasimha on the pedestal. So there's a lot of meaning attached to that also, I think. If you
Ashish,
look in.
Sorry, Mamaji, I interrupted. Ashish, if I may, you can also read this supplement 19 in God Speaks. The real birth, death. So there's only one birth and one death. So you can read that, and then that might give you some more inputs.
Sure. Yes. Okay. Shall I continue?
Please.
Okay. To return, however, to the story of Gulab Baba, Kaka again uttered the word Meher Baba and grasped Gulab Baba gently by both his hands. Gulab Baba at once got up and without demur followed Kaka and Jal out of his house and was taken to the village bus stand. The party then took the first bus for Itarsi that lies about 100 miles to the north, whence they would be able to board a train the same night for Jabalpur. At some village or other, the bus halted for about half an hour. Buses in India tarry to the oddest place if the driver has friends there. And Muslims who knew and revered Gulab Baba begged him to come and take a food at his house. Gulab Baba, however, gave him a peremptory refusal and showered him with abuse. Kaka then bought 3 laddus and Gulab Baba ate half of one of these and gave the rest to Jal and Kaka. At Itarsi, the party had some hours to wait for the train, and on the station, Gulab Baba did his best to pursue Jal and Kaka to get to sleep for an hour or two. Kaka, however, was quick to scent the rushes by which a must tries to escape being brought to Baba, suggested to Gulab Baba that he and not they should go to sleep. Gulab Baba then turned to the adjacent wall and addressing the wall as if it were God, said, "Why do you send this man after me? He never lets me alone for a second." And concluded this remark, still apparently addressing the wall as it is where God, with a spate of profanities. These episodes attracted the attention of loiterers on the station. Looters on the station, but probably none of them were new Gulab Baba, for Kaka and Jal were able to deflect their curiosity by saying he was a madman. A laddu is we know laddu, so it's okay. A laddu is a spherical saffron colored sweet confection that may be of any size, from a golf ball to a small orange. They reached Jabalpur at 3 o'clock in the morning, and when he entered the door of the Mast ashram, Gulab Baba surveyed the room and exclaimed, "This is the hospital. This is his hospital." In the morning, Baba, before coming to see Gulab Baba, sent him some sweetmeats in the three colors, green, red, and yellow, and also mattress. Gulab Baba, however, refused to use the mattress, saying, I can't sit on that because he has given it with his own hands. He also pushed the sweets away, but Kaka managed to persuade him to eat a little of them. A short while later, Baba entered the room, and Gulab Baba, addressing Kaka and designating Baba, said, "He is God himself, and you have tricked me." Baba then sat on the mattress and signed to Gulab Baba to sit beside him. He refused, saying, "I am not fit to sit beside him." After some gentle, after some gentle and loving persuasion, Gulab Baba agreed to have his hair cut and be bathed, clothed, and fed by Baba. He was fed in a room behind closed doors, and after a while, the doors were flung open, and Gulab Baba rushed out of the room in a frenzy of agitation and cried out, "I can't see my way out. I am blind." Although he was so excited, Kaka, by dint of gentle persuasion, managed to bring him back, so that Baba was able to continue feeding him, and the meal was completed without further incident. Baba then gave orders to Kaka to send Gulab Baba straight back to Elichpur. On the way to the bus stand, Gulab Baba asked Kaka to come with him and stay with him. But Kaka replied that he could not do so without Baba's permission. The must from Ujjain, whom Baba had contacted in Ujjain itself a few weeks before, was brought to Jabalpur by Chagan. Although Although no one now remembers what he was called, he was an important and high must of the sixth plane, and he made indelible impression on those who first saw him in the crowded street in Ujjain. He was rather stout, about 50 years old, naked except for a loin cloth, and he sat at the side of the street with a huge mound of rags and old bites of paper in front of him, a mound at least 3 feet high. He kept picking up pieces of rag from this mound and tearing them to shreds. Baba stopped the car when he had just passed him by, pointed him out to the party as a highly advanced must, and sent one of the mandali with a rupee coin to be given to him. When Baba contacts a must outside his ashram, he usually does three external things. Of course, one is not privileged to see the inner and the real side of his work. He gives him a mental coin for the metal in the some way serve as a medium of contact. He feeds him, and if possible, he sits with him alone for a few minutes in the nearest convenient place. Since observing silence, Baba has not touched money except when he gives it to Must in this way. In this case, he gave the Must a coin by proxy only, but one presumes that some contact was achieved by this means. This Ujjain
Ashish, you
Must
want
was
to rotate now? Sanjay ji, you're okay to read for some time before we wrap up?
Yeah,
Jai Baba.
where are we?
This Ujjain must.
Yeah. This Ujjain Mast was one of the few who stayed for about 10 days in the Jabalpur ashram. And after Baba's work with him was complete, Chagan took him back to Ujjain. Khala Masi was an old lady and a highly advanced Mastani. Chagan bought her from Sioni, that's close to Jabalpur, that area. And she seemed to have recognized Baba's spiritual greatness. For as soon as she saw him, she arose and embraced Baba lovingly and then pressed her temples with her hands, which is a gesture that the woman offers only to those she loves. She was bathed, clothed, and fed by Baba, and she sat with her alone for some time. She said to Baba, "You are the ocean. Give me a few drops from it to drink." Dada Maharaj of Amravati was an aged Mazub like mast of the sixth plane, probably more than 80 years old, and so frail that he could not walk and had to be carried pick a back. He was brought to the Jabalpur ashram by Chagan for one day. He was held in very great esteem in Amravati and the country around about, and used to carry a big bundle with a hat on top of it, and would refer to this bundle as he and his hat as his parents. He was a great smoker of cannabis indica, a habit that caused him to, to be criticized in some critics, and he would often hold a pack of playing cards in one hand. I think this is hookah. This is chilam. Chilam we eat, no? That
No, I
cannabis
think I think this is
indica.
marijuana. Let's check it.
Yeah, yeah,
Cannabis is basically marijuana.
Yes, yes.
yeah.
Afim.
Mariana. Yes.
Afim,
Marijuana.
afim.
Afim. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So cannabis indica. Yep, that's what it is. It's
Yeah.
also called hemp. And today there is a debate on whether it's um, uh, uh, medically relevant or not. So America is
Mhm.
is is fighting the battle. Some states have approved
So
medical
legalizing
use.
it.
Yeah, medical
Yeah.
use of marijuana. India is also researching in a big way and trying to give this permission for certain diseases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a general belief that
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead.
by his spiritual influence, he controlled the justice in that part of the central provinces, and that the ultimate decision as to whom should be arrested by the police and whom should be sentenced or acquitted by judge or jury rested with him. As a result of this belief, many miscreants would come to him in the reaction of remorse after having committed some crime or other, and throw themselves on his mercy, and it was widely held that if he forgave them, they would have nothing to fear from the forces of the law. A brief such as this is notably best left without comment because it is the kind of thing about which one cannot remain impartial. One must either stand up upon the rostrum of so called sound common sense and dismiss it as superstitious nonsense, or go to the other extreme and identify one's conviction with that of a local village folk. Whatever one's opinion may be, this belief was very widely disseminated, and the account of Dada Maharaj would be incomplete if it was left out. Yeah. He was kept only a few hours in Jabalpur because he recognized Baba, and indeed he greatly revered him. Professor Deshmukh, who would often bring Dada Maharaj to his house, tells how he would pay his respects to a photo of Baba that hung in a conspicuous place on the wall of Deshmukh's sitting room. Baba also once sent a message to Dada Maharaj through Deshmukh saying, "You know me as I am." Dada Mia was another must of Amravati. Chhagan failed to bring him to Jabalpur, for when he heard he was to be taken to Meher Baba, he declined to come, saying, "He, Baba, is the emperor. How can I come?" There was a must in Saugor, whose real name no one now remembers, whom Baba christened with a sobriquet Magar Mast, crocodile mast. He was a very good mast, like a mazhoop like state, 35 to 40ish, fat, tall, silent, and completely naked. Baba had first contacted him in Saugor. I think this is Sagar. There is the way of writing is Saugor. It actually is Sagar, which is close to Jabalpur in Madhya Pradesh, that area.
Okay.
Yeah, it is Sagar. Now it is
So why
called
don't
Sagar.
we why
There
don't we
are
quickly
Baba lovers in Sagar, and there was a very good singing done by them last Amar Tithi. Yeah,
so we'll just quickly see those
yeah,
locations that are mentioned
yeah.
there.
Here
Is
there is
you are right,
Sagar. Yeah,
Sagar
Sagar.
and
This is Sagar.
Jabalpur. Where is
Yeah,
Elichpur?
Elichpur,
Yeah.
I think it's Achalpur near to Amravati. I think
Oh,
Amravati.
okay.
this,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
there is
Yeah, here it
Achalpur.
is. Amravati.
Yeah,
Elichpur,
yeah,
Amravati. Right.
yeah. It's
So,
Okay,
Achalpur actually.
okay.
Now it called as the Achalpur.
what
Achalpur.
is it called?
Now it is called as Achalpur. Achalpur.
Achalpur. Okay.
But
Okay.
those days maybe it's Elichpur. Yeah.
Elichpur. Mm.
Hmm. Talking of Sagar, Sagar, there is a very good group which comes to Baba
Okay.
during Amar Tithi. They sang a beautiful song.
Nice.
That's
Nice.
in
Nice.
the folk style of that area. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. Where were we?
Okay.
I believe.
No, we moved. Yeah. Dada Mia.
Yeah, yeah. There was a must in Sagar
Oh, wait. I
whose
think we covered this. Yeah.
let's
He was dubbed.
yeah we
Yeah.
covered
From
this.
here.
Yeah,
He was dubbed.
he was dubbed the Magar Mast Baba himself because perhaps as a result of sitting naked in all weathers in the open, or because of inadequate food, or a combination of both, his skin was covered with hard, rough, thick scales that at once brought to mind the skin of a crocodile. At Jabalpur, Baba used to rub oil into his skin every day, and after a week of this treatment, strangers would ask why he was called the crocodile musk, for his skin was no longer reminiscent of this ferocious reptile. He was supple and healthy as a result of Baba's daily care. So much then for the most interesting personalities of this ashram, and the enthusiast for detail is referred to the supplement for a cursory annotations of others who came and went. It is unfortunate that scant justice has been done to the general atmosphere of this ashram and to that subtle quintessence of love which pervades everything that Baba does. His physical presence and the brilliance of his leadership have that impossible quality of the philosopher's stone that by their magic touch they transmute the base metal of the most commonplace routine into a treasure of loving service. This is perhaps an ornate way of describing something that is at once so real that one might think, if easy to describe quite simply, and so transcendental, the spirit of it eludes the grasp of words. But this magic, this imponderable something, weaves itself like a golden thread into the fabric of everything that Baba does. And when the factual details of a phase of Baba's life are buried so deep in the ashes of one's mind to be almost forgotten, the memory of this splendid thing is still there. Beautiful, beautiful last paragraph. Very well summarized. Jai Baba. I think we can start with the next chapter next week. I think number 3. After
Agreed.
this is
Agreed.
number
Yeah, agreed.
Number
We'll
3.
just quickly, we'll see Jabalpur, if there's anything, just at least the names of the.
Yeah, in the appendix. Yeah.
Okay. Jabalpur. Yeah. So Dada Maharaj, Gulab Baba, whom we saw, the Elichpur Mast, Sioni. So did we see Sioni on the map? Sioni is also there.
Yeah, it's close to Jabalpur actually. There was a comedian who came from That's the only weekend's very popular place.
Oh, because of that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, in the comedy show used to come.
Okay. Non-Baba,
Yeah,
general.
yeah.
Okay, okay. So that was Sioni. Then Magar Mast, the person whose skin changed after Baba's oil. Mithai Baba, there was somebody who was very fond of sweets. Then Muhammad, of course, was also in Jabalpur. Upasni Maharaj, oh, so he spent some time in Jabalpur, 19th
Passed
January
through,
19th. Yeah, passed through
passed to
19th,
Jabalpur when Baba was living.
1929. He sent a message. Name not known, couple of them. Then 3 of them. Yeah. Okay. So I think quite an effort in putting all this
Kat-
together.
Yeah, Katni is also around that place.
This Gulab Maharaj is actually very famous in the MP side and Vidarbha side actually.
Oh, okay. You've heard of the name.
Yeah.
You're
Yes,
not getting
it's a very.
confused. No, you're not getting confused with Tajuddin, because he was also referred to
He's
as
not Tajuddin.
Yeah, yeah,
Gulab Maharaj.
yeah, yeah.
Gulab Baba. He's very Gulab. Now they call it as Gulab Rao Maharaj actually,
Oh,
and
okay.
he is very famous in the MP Vidarbha side. If you
Then
just
it must be. Then it must be
yes,
him, Elichpur,
yes,
that
yeah,
region.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. So with that, we wrap up for this week, and let's get back together in the coming week. Any other thoughts before we wrap up?
The story about Jabalpur was really touching, because there was a clear message by these Masts, very in clear terms, stating that Baba is God. So whereas in other places we have not
Yeah.
seen this expression from Masts because they were not in tune with the general public awareness. So here at least a few of them have told that Baba is God. So that was very, say, enchanting
Yeah.
for me while reading this.
So
I
the
think there
other
are
thing,
video clips also available, right? There's a short video clip of Baba bathing must and feeding them. That's of Jabalpur, I think.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
But what is intriguing to me is many of them resist, and many of them want to get away or escape and so on. So that part of the behavior seems to be strange, because maybe there is a element of fear about God, or why, if they recognize Baba's true nature and recognize him as God, why are they hesitating, or why are they trying to escape, is something that seems odd.
Typically, such unions lead to dropping of the body. So
Maybe
there may be
the
a
fear of
few
death. Yeah,
sanskaras.
Maybe,
Yeah,
and
they have a
then
fear of that.
it may be the force of vasanas in them still sticking around,
possible.
which
Yes, samskaras.
binds them up to the world. Maybe it's a struggle between that lingering vasana to the soul.
More
That
likely.
may
You're right.
be, yes, more
You're
likely.
likely. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. Great.
Right.
Ashok
Uh,
ji,
one,
your
one, one thing I just wanted to correct. I just mentioned about the Gulab Rao Maharaj, right? I think I am wrong because Gulab Rao Maharaj was died on 1915.
oh,
So
okay.
Okay,
maybe
okay.
not
It's a
that
different.
same. Yeah. Sorry for that.
Okay, okay. Yeah.
Thanks for researching that and coming back. Thank you. So that's another master, maybe another spiritual master.
Yes, Karthik.
Maharashtra is the home of so many masters. It's unbelievable. Really, Maharashtra.
Yeah.
Maharashtra, yes.
Yeah.
Well
No,
said,
Ashok. What
Maharaj.
is your hardware issues today? Hardware, software, what happened?
No, I don't know what happened. I couldn't join, and then later on, it happened. Maybe it's my, I don't know. I would take it as uh, wish, Baba's wish, and I don't know what happened, and then I couldn't get the script on my phone. So then now what I had done is that I put the script on my um, laptop without joining the Teams, and I was listening to your um, reading on the phone.
Some
Wow.
jugglery, missionary jugglery done.
I mean, it's
Ba-
it's
Baba takes you to him in different ways.
yeah, in different ways, and maybe it's the sevas of listening to all of you and whatever it is. That is the truth, Karthik, and that's the truth for everyone.
Jai Baba, Jai Baba, Jai Baba.
Hey,
We'll
Baba.
have the
Jai
prayer
Baba.
by Sanjay and then close down.
Please.
Okay. Hari Paramatma Allahur Mast God Yazdahu 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 God Meher Baba Ki Jai.